Oh, this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Worth. I am so happy that you are here, and I'm really excited to bring back my guest, Jacqueline Rose. We had the two-part episode about menopause and perimenopause and really dug really deep into it. And so I was so excited to be able to have her come back today. So I want to give you a refresher. Jacqueline is a leading voice in women's health, perimenopause, and menopause. Her mission today is to create and empower women to get proactive and improve their own health and well-being. She's especially passionate about changing the way women understand and experience their menopause journey and reframing the menopause conversation. Jacqueline believes that good women's health and being begins by understanding our hormones, creating hormonal balance, and having strong hormonal health throughout our life. Welcome back, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Debbie, for having me. I'm excited about our conversation today.
We were going to, just so the audience knows, we're going to be talking a lot about the changes in the cognitive function and how menopause impacts the brain, and about how at this time of life, there's some ADHD diagnosis happening midlife. I'm excited to jump in.
Let's start. We've had a long conversation already about menopause. Thank you for inviting me back. I want to start with something like a reframe of the whole menopause conversation, because I think it's going to help us understand why our brain often turns to jelly at this midlife stage. And that first thing is that we understand in conventional wisdom, perimenopause and menopause is your hormones, your reproductive hormones, these hormones, estrogen, progesterone, FSH, LH, testosterone, these key essential reproductive menstrual cycle hormones, fluctuating, doing all crazy things, roller coaster ride, till we get into that post-menopause when we finished our periods and they are at new, mostly low, different levels. This is a reproductive hormonal event. The main feature of this stage is that we stop having periods, moving from fertility years to this menopause, post-menopause years where we now are unable to biologically have children anymore. However, if this was only a reproductive hormonal event, we would not have this long list of all these other symptoms that we know happen: physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, cognitive symptoms, some deep psychological symptoms very often for women. Why? And it depends who you listen to, whether there are 35 symptoms, 50 symptoms, 75 symptoms. Why are all these checklists of symptoms of all the different things that can change in your body? Why are they happening if this is only, and I put only in inverted commas, a reproductive event in a woman's body? So what is going on in the brain during this time?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Why do we just think it is this reproductive system when anybody who's been through menopause, I am 11 years post-menopause. And the more I learn about what happens, the further I get away from where I had my periods almost 12 years ago now, is that I'm having all of these other physical and mental issues that are really what I consider, if I just went to the doctor about one thing, cardiovascular, cognitive functions have been dramatically impacted. We seem to label it this brain fog.
Yeah.
But it's way beyond some brain fog where you have an extra cup of coffee.
We have this category that we call, as we said, I divide up the different symptoms. And one of these categories of symptomology is cognitive changes, this change in function. And it can show up in different ways. The most obvious fog. You're not as sharp, the wool between your ears. You can't forgetfulness. There's also things like short-term memory loss or forgetting words in a sentence. You may forget the name of a colleague sitting next to you in the middle of a meeting, and it just has gone. Not because you don't know who this person is, but that is how brain fog may be showing up. You missing words, losing words mid-sentence, not being able to find the words. One of my clients described it for me as she used to be able to do that juggle. She was always so sharp and on it and with it. And now everything just feels so much harder, takes so much more time and energy to do the same things she used to do, because that she's just not as sharp as she used to be. She can't run around and do the things she used to do. So it can show up in lots of different ways. Basically, there is, again, different ranges, different varieties for women. This is not every single woman is going to experience it in the same ways. Absolutely not. But there is often for women who are experiencing this, some type of executive function change. The thing that I hear most from my clients is that feeling of, maybe I've got early onset dementia, this worry that something has shifted and is never going to go back. I'm never like that thing that we talk about, that baby brain post-pregnancy, that your cognitive functions will, please God, return. There is a fear here that I've now got early onset dementia and this is now a downward spiral. I'm never going to get that back again. This can show up. The general sense is something has shifted in my brain and I just can't I can't show up. I'm not functioning cognitively the way that I used to.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly how I have been feeling for years, and it's just getting progressively worse.
Yeah.
In fact, before I used to be able to publish the podcast. I didn't edit. And now I have to edit, because when I'm interviewing, I'll start a sentence, a train of thought, and then it will switch to where I can actually get all the words together to ask the question for my guests.
Yeah.
That is what I'm talking about. The editing process is where I need to edit, because I sound like I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about. And that executive functioning is very much diminished for all of the education, and as a lifelong learner, constant book reader, where you're learning, and the ability to learn something new has almost just in this last year become so terrifying of what is happening in my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm not that old. I'm 58.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge what you're saying and talk to your audience. Many women who may be high achieving professional women, who may be entrepreneurs with their own businesses, who have positions of leadership in companies, that all of us at life stage, we've worked years to reach those levels that we are proud of, whether it's positions of leadership or starting your own business or high achieving professional women, whatever it is. We've spent a good chunk of our time, probably about a good 25 years, to get to this stage. And then just as we're at our peak performance, we have cognitive impairment. We have executive function diminished. We are not able to sit in a meeting and really follow what's going on. We can't complete our to-do list. And all of a sudden we feel redundant, useless. I feel like a babbling fool. There's so much anxiety, stress, self-critical talk. What's going on with me? Maybe I need to resign. Maybe I need to retire. Maybe I need to take an easier, low stress type of job. There's so much involved in this element, in this piece of the menopause puzzle that we really are not talking about.
Exactly. I've had all of those thoughts myself, as I'm sure, and in talking with my friends who are in a similar position in life, seasoned with their menopause, we've all had these conversations.
I want to mention two things. The first thing is this rise in what appears to be ADHD diagnosis. We are seeing that for midlife women, anyone really about 45 plus, but again, 45 is an average age, we see that there is increased diagnosis of ADHD in these midlife women. And I want to, if possible, can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Let's just dive into that. Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to disclaimer this piece of the conversation. ADHD, attention deficit hyper disorder, is a real diagnosis. It exists. I am not here at all to say that you are crazy and it's in your head and this isn't a real thing. Absolutely not. I know that this is a real challenge for many people. So I want to just acknowledge that, and God forbid not ever say that this is something that doesn't exist, and not to give space for those women who really are struggling and suffering with this condition. An ADHD coach expert that I interviewed for my menopause summit, she gave this statistic, and I actually think it's a really good way to understand what's going on. She said there are a third of women always had ADHD, but were never diagnosed. And then something happens at midlife, which is obviously this cognitive change, this cognitive stuff going on. And basically, either now they really are able to get a diagnosis. It wasn't really, if we're now 50, when we were kids, ADHD, ADD really was not on the radar. So these are women who were always diagnosed, who were always not functioning properly. And now their symptoms, for want of a better word, become so obvious that they get their diagnosis. There are a third of women who were always borderline, who were probably highly functioning ADHD people. And it may have always been there, but in ways that they could really function and manage in school, in the educational system, in society. But again, as they're navigating perimenopause, they tip over the edge, and now their cognitive function becomes more impaired. So those are two groups of people who either definitely had clear ADHD and were just never diagnosed, and those women who had signs but really were not strong enoughly able to be diagnosed as such, but now something happens and their diagnosis is much clearer. And then there's the other third, the third group of women who never had ADHD, were not your typical candidates growing up, were really non-ADHD sufferers at all. And because of their cognitive changes as a result of perimenopause and menopause, they are now, and I put in inverted commas, diagnosed as ADHD, but probably it's cognitive impairment as a result of hormonal changes from perimenopause and menopause. Again, I'm not saying that it doesn't show up as ADHD, but really that third group of women, that 1/3 of women, it is not the diagnosis, the root cause, the reason of why they have cognitive impairment is not ADHD. It's perimenopause and menopause associated.
I wonder if I'm in that middle group, functionable, or borderline.
I'm not an ADHD expert, and so I don't want to speak out of turn. But I think in general, there is that sense of executive function impairments. I just can't get on top of things. Everything requires more time and energy. I get frustrated, can't focus, can't concentrate, can't get through my to-do list. A lot of procrastination, being distracted. Maybe you get super zoned into something at the expense of other things. Low motivation. It can show up in lots of different ways, but it's probably something that would be categorized as executive dysfunction.
Okay. Could it possibly include, I know you're not an expert, but from you having somebody on that you did learn this onto your summit, was that like somebody like myself, I've always had juggling multiple balls. As I was raising my son as a single mom, I worked on my bachelor's degree till I was 40. part-time for 15 years. And so I
Wow.
always had 15 balls up in the air, no kidding,
Yeah.
and rising up in my career. And people always wondered how I could do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm just curious. And
Yeah.
a
So
lot of the
that
people I know.
juggling,
Mm-hmm,
yeah, that juggling, I think, becomes really impossible if you're really experiencing
mm-hmm,
intense cognitive changes. Like you just can't, your brain can't switch from all these different things as easily as it used to when we were younger, as you expressed in your 20s, 30s, early 40s. I'm now in perimenopause as a working mother of 5 kids. I already have in my head, what do I need to cook for dinner? Which kid needs to be taken to which extracurricular activity? Where am I going? What's happening? Those that sort of network diagram of all the lines interconnecting,
mm-hmm.
we can do that easily in our 30s and early 40s. Women's brains are wired to be able to make all those intricate connections, to be already thinking at 8 o'clock in the morning, how does the day going to look so that I can then make dinner in the evening, and who needs to go where, and what do I need to buy, and which errands do I need to run? And I think in perimenopause and menopause, that is one of the things that women lose if you have cognitive impairment. And that's one of the really debilitating things that not only impacts just the functionality of the brain, but your self-worth, your self-identity, how you define yourself, all of these things, because that is how we show up as women. Like you said, single mother, raising a kid, studying, doing your masters, all these things. And all of a sudden, you can't get through a 5-point to-do list.
It's interesting about that extra one-third being diagnosed.
Yeah. What is going on in the brain? Why is this happening? Why is there this 1/3 that is going to potentially experience cognitive changes with no history of ADHD or cognitive impairment or executive dysfunction? This goes back to the beginning of our conversation. What is going on with our hormones? Understanding this transitional stage of perimenopause and menopause stage of life, not just as a reproductive experience, but as a whole body experience, because our reproductive hormones do so much in our body, way more than just regulate our menstrual cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that there are estrogen receptors in every single part of our body.
Hmm.
We know that brain function, there is now much more conversation about the role of the brain and the relationship between the gut and the brain. And we always used to think that the brain spoke to the gut. For example, with hunger hormones or satiating hormones, your brain tells your gut, now you're hungry. Your brain tells your gut, now you're full, or now I'm thirsty. There are these sort of, we thought it was mostly a one-way relationship between the brain and the gut. We now know that the gut is talking and communicating with the brain in both directions. And actually, communication is from the gut up to the brain, 80% of the communication, and only brain to gut, 20%. So, what is going on in our gut? What is going on in our gut health? What is going on in our digestive system is actually impacting what is going on in our brain. Not only are there estrogen receptors in our brain, there are also estrogen receptors in our gut, and estrogen receptors that are responding to inflammation. We also know that serotonin, which is a brain hormone, we know about this hormone serotonin. It's part of our feel-good hormones. We know a lot about it because of mental health challenges. Is 80% of it is made in the gut, and it travels up to the brain. We know that there is so much going on in the brain that is impacted by changing estrogen, changing gut health, inflammation, this serotonin being only one of the other hormones that is changing. There are lots of other hormones that impact the brain, altered and impacted throughout perimenopause and menopause, that it's not surprising that brain function changes. There is wonderful research being done now by a fantastic doctor called Dr. Lisa Mosconi. She's doing amazing research, and she really is cutting edge of menopause research in brain function. She's looking at how brain function changes as a result, this perimenopause and menopause experience. And she actually is saying that the brain is leading the perimenopause menopause transition. That what goes on in the brain is actually the primary element of perimenopause and menopause. And it then, as our brain function changes, it is then sending all these other messages to our body, because we know that the pituitary gland, which is housed in the brain, and the hypothalamus, which is housed in the brain, they are key organs in releasing hormones in the body. They indicate, they are telling organs what hormones need to be released. The pituitary tells the thyroid which hormones to release when. The pituitary hypothalamus is engaged with the adrenal glands for a stress response. It is also telling our ovaries when to release estrogen. So the brain is this master communicator for the hormone system to tell our body what organs need which hormones, and which organs need to release which hormones which glands need to release hormones at different times. So as it's like this feedback mechanism of ovaries start producing less estrogen, the brain is being told there's less estrogen in the body, and lots of different things then happen. And that's why, one of the reasons why there is so much focus now on what is happening in the brain during perimenopause and menopause. According to Dr. Lisa Mosconi, this is a brain experience.
Mm-hmm. You know what I'm really curious about is that, how do we see this? Are they using imaging to identify where this is? I believe it's in the frontal lobe with executive functioning, and how that looks different than, because most people aren't going to have an MRI baseline in their 30s or something to be able to compare, but it's done with imaging to where they can start to see the differences in how it's actually impacting that part of a brain, that maybe it looks similar to a TIA, a mini stroke, or something of that nature. Because these symptoms remind me, 11 years ago, I had two TIAs. The year I went into menopause, I had two TIAs 6 or 8 weeks apart.
Wow.
And the second one was much worse. I really had to have a speech therapist. I had to walk with the gait belt. I was in the hospital for 5 days. In the US, they're trying to push you out after a day.
She has done scans and imaging of the female brain. She compares female brains to male brains. She also compares female brains at different ages and stages, showing what happens to brain function. She has a new book out. I'm not her PR person at all, even though it sounds like I am. I just know that she is one of the few people really talking about this. She has a new book called The Menopause Brain, and she goes through all her latest research. But I guess the bottom line for us is cognitive changes, cognitive impairment is a real thing that happens in perimenopause and menopause. It's not just brain fog, and it can show up in women in so many different ways. And I know that from your personal experience, you've been struggling with this. And the question is for you and for other women out there is, has perimenopause, menopause, hormonal fluctuations ever been brought up as a possible reason for why you're going through what you're going through?
Possible. And they ran some of the blood work, and they don't look too far off the hormone markers. But I question the ranges for what's normal. If you look, it's generally males, females, all ages. And I've also, in talking with the psychiatrist, have you checked your vitamin D's, right? Where normal range is down to 20, and where they want it 60 to 80 for healthy brain function and serotonin balance. What makes me question the ranges that it really shows that women's bodies and male bodies are very different. So why are we grouped into one range
Yeah,
for all ages?
yeah. You've hit a great point because women get their blood work done, they want to check, make sure, and the doctor says, your blood work looks normal, everything looks fine. We can't identify a reason for your symptoms. So, first things first, blood work looking fine and normal, as you said. Conventional Western medicine ranges for blood work are too broad, they're too insensitive, and they're not really helping us specifically for women. And also, doctors are very often looking at absolute numbers and not the relationships between numbers.
Mhm.
Your estrogen number, for example, may be fine as an objective number, but then when we start looking at it in relationship to progesterone, we may find that the ratio between these two hormones, which is really important, it's not just the objective numbers, it's the subjective numbers and the relationship between the hormones. We want to understand these wide ranges are very unhelpful for women, especially women in perimenopause and menopause, because we want to be looking at much more sensitive range. And for example, I know this doesn't relate as much does, but to brain function. But when we look at, for example, numbers like our cholesterol, women can have high cholesterol in perimenopause and menopause because cholesterol, I think we may have mentioned this last time, is the building molecule. It's the building block for hormonal production, for testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So if you have actually too low a level of cholesterol within that normal range, it actually may not be great for women because we actually want slightly higher ranges for a perimenopause, menopause woman because we need that cholesterol building block. We don't want it way out, but a bit higher, 10 points higher is really fine. And you're 100% right. Vitamin D, an optimal functional level of vitamin D. We want to see vitamin D numbers above 50, closer to 80. And I actually have a friend who said to me with great pride, I went to my doctor and my vitamin D level was between 25 and 30. And they were so happy with me. And I was like, that's not a great number, 25. And they were like so angry with me, but my doctor said it was so good. And I'm like, yeah, I really want to be seeing you above 50. And they were like, oh, okay. So again, it's
Exactly, exactly. Mine
complicated.
has run for the last 5 years that I've been really, or maybe even 10 years, I've been monitoring it, and it's been like 23, 25. And when I
Yeah,
got mine months ago, it was up to 33, and I got so excited that it was
right.
higher. So you can
Yeah.
imagine hearing you want it over 50 or the 60, closer to
Yeah.
80. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
I should not be celebrating. I should be figuring out how to get that higher. How can we help ourselves with this cognitive function?
Those are two important questions. How do we talk to those people around us to get that support and understanding? And what can we actually do about this? Let me start with that first question. I think this is part of that larger perimenopause, menopause conversation. Talking to your loved ones, your family, your friends, your colleagues, if you are experiencing different symptoms, rather than it being shame and embarrassment and guilt and self-judgment. We need more honest and open conversations. You can say to colleagues in a meeting, I'm going through bad brain fog. If I forget your name, I'm sorry. I know you, I love you, you're a dear colleague. This is just brain fog. um, Again, depending on your work environment, depending on who you're with, and sort of your, very often for women in positions of leadership or positions of responsibility, it's really hard to turn around and say, I've got brain fog, I may not follow what's going on in this meeting. That goes more to the conversation of talking about menopause in the workplace and menopause support in the workplace, but even just talking to your family, your loved ones, your children, your partner. We need to be having these conversations. I'm a big advocate of talking about things as much as we can, talking about things in an honest way, and also not self-deprecating,
Mm.
not to blame ourselves and not to use the language and the conversations in any sort of way that is going to be negative or putting menopause and our experiences in a negative light, because that just self-perpetuates those feelings of shame and embarrassment and guilt.
Yes, it is. Because I think women have enough shame and guilt that they're carrying around. They don't need to add something else to the suitcase.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And then what can we actually do about it? So I think there are a couple of things, and it really depends about what stage on your menopause journey you are in. Let's talk about if you're in perimenopause, in those early years, early mid 40s for most women. We need to make sure that we are keeping our brain sharp, which sometimes is difficult when you actually are experiencing brain fog. But as I said, like you went to study again, we want to keep our brains functioning and working as best we can. We know that learning new skills is important, like word searches or games or any of these types of things. It's just a great way. It's not going to be foolproof. You're not going to avoid it because you're playing Wordle or something. It helps using your brain as much as you can. Our brains are about 60 to 70% fat. In midlife, we want a higher percentage of healthy, good fats in our diet. Our brain needs these fats, fatty, oily fishes, omega 3s, really good brain food that we want to be thinking about. The coconut oils, avocados, nuts, seeds, these help feed our brain. So we really want to make sure that we are looking at sort of the brain supportive foods. We also want to reduce as much as possible the inflammatory foods. As we said, inflammation in our gut is going to travel up to our brain. So reducing the inflammation, reducing the inflammatory foods to really help bring our gut microbiome and our inflammation down and back into balance. So removing those trigger foods like sugar, gluten, alcohol, caffeine, for some women, dairy, really looking at those triggering inflammatory foods. That's what we can do in those more earlier years. Omega 3s, whether you get them in supplement form or in food form, really up to you. Omega 3s are going to be really important to help support brain function. And then we can also look at hormone replacement therapy, and whether you're a candidate for that, and that's going to be an appropriate form of treatment for you. I am not anti or pro HRT. I am, if HRT is right for you and you've had an informed conversation about it with a knowledgeable person, go for it. Go and do it. I know that there is mixed evidence in terms of research as to whether estrogen and or testosterone is an appropriate treatment. Again, I'm talking about the evidence research that is there. And estrogen can support brain function. And the other last thing I want to say is connection and community. And I know we talked about it a little bit in our last interview. We know that connection and community boost those feel-good hormones, boost the oxytocin, boost the serotonin, boost the endorphins. These are all hormones that are critical to brain function. And again, we often hear about these hormones in very negative or related to mental health challenges, but these are in their optimum functional state. They are hormones: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Our brain needs these hormones for good function, for good brain health. And we can support those brain hormones. And the easiest one really is that oxytocin, because it's about bonding and connection and community. It helps with overall brain function.
Yes. I've done some research, not recently, about the impact of women being in community, being part of like friendship circles, and that there's been research performed on how that affects our tendency to become depressed if we do
Yes.
not have it, which I know
Yeah.
now from our conversations is also that it increases the oxytocins and the serotonin and all the feel goods, but it is actually very vital to us
Yeah.
because we're generally empty nesters by then,
Yeah.
and women tend to have a tendency to live longer than men. We've spent so many of our years taking care of others that we really need it for our mental health and our physical and our spiritual
100%.
health to go after interests that light us up.
100%. 100%. We are finding this, like the research on those good brain function hormones. Again, they've had a really bad rap because of SSRIs and mental health challenges and addiction and sort of the extreme cases of these hormones in our brain. But again, in that optimal state, they really make us feel better. They really support brain function. So yeah, really a really important piece of the puzzle. I also wanted to talk about what happens in postmenopause and brain function, because I know that's a bit of the stage that you're at now.
Mm.
And does brain function return? And that's one of the things that so many women get worried about, that I've lost it, and is it ever going to come back? And what Lisa Mosconi's research has shown so far, and again, anecdotal evidence has shown so far, is that in many cases, your brain function does come back. Things have definitely changed. Things absolutely have changed. And it also could be biological. We don't need to be holding so many things in our brain in our 60s as we had to in our 30s. When I'm 60, I'm not waking up wondering what I'm going to make for my kids for dinner and wondering which kids I have to take to which extracurricular activities and who's got what and who's doing what, because I'm 60 and my life looks different. My needs are different. So there is a biological element going on here that our brain doesn't have to function potentially in the same way, and we can choose how we want to use it. But in many cases, again, God forbid, unless there's disease or some critical chronic situation going on, brain function does return. Maybe not 100% to the levels of where it was, but definitely to a significant level to where it was.
Oh, that is such good news. I can't tell you. Like I'm doing the
Yeah.
sparkly fingers dance here because it is directly impacting my life in a
Yeah.
major way right now with the work I do, which is important, and I need to be able to get to the knowledge that I've spent my life accumulating.
I know it can be so debilitating. The biggest fear is that it's never going to come back. Now I'm on the dementia train, and that's it.
That is such good news. I have this list for either inflammation or
Yeah.
my brain: extra virgin olive oil,
Yes.
avocado, fish oil,
Yeah.
dark chocolate without sugar,
Yes.
almonds, and walnuts.
Yes. Those are all the healthy fats. Those are the good, healthy fats that are going to really help nourish the brain.
Oh, yeah. And then I have bio salt,
Yeah.
NIACIN. I don't know how to pronounce that, but
Yeah. I want to talk about hot flushes and night sweats. We used to think that hot flushes and night sweats is a physical symptom. All of a sudden, you feel the temperature rising and you've got to rip off your clothes, go and have a cold shower, stand in front of a fan, whatever it is that you need to do. Hot flushes are a brain function symptom, not just physical sensations of heat. It is the blood capillaries in the brain that get thinner. And it is actually, and we know that hot flashes impact cognitive function. Women are experiencing either regular hot flashes or extreme hot flashes. Please be aware that it's going to also impact potentially your cognitive function, because we know that hot flashes are associated with brain function And you are at a higher risk of cognitive impairment if you have a high incident of hot flashes and or night sweats.
My night sweats for years went away. I'm 11 years post, and they've been back for the last two,
Wow.
where I wake up on fire and just cannot absolutely cool down. And then eventually I'll cool down and then I'm freezing.
Yeah. So
Oh,
we know that there is a relationship between hot flashes or night sweats and cognitive impairment.
mm. I just want to say hallelujah, because when you're in the middle of this, like you had mentioned, where you people say, do I take a lesser job? What can I do? Because you're in the middle of your
Yeah.
career
Yeah.
and you're getting closer to retirement. In your 50s, I think we really start to think about retirement. Maybe you didn't work when you were raising children, or you worked part-time, or made career shifts after your children got a little older, where you're
Yeah.
going after some of your dreams later.
Yeah.
And for those who were in the childbearing years or other caregiving, and you're running towards a goal of needing so many resources to be able to
Yes.
make that happen. And then
Yes.
the cognitive changes happen. If you've already reached a certain level in your career, you want to stay there, or you want
Yeah.
now to jump off and do your entrepreneurship, but the cognitive changes are making you question your capacity
Yeah.
to be able to take that jump. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad to hear that there is a way that it does come back, that this research is now starting to show that it can come back. So,
Yeah.
what is something that somebody should be doing right now, listening, and everybody listening is that's me, that's me, that's me. Would suspect 80% of the listeners, this is going to resonate for them. So,
Yeah.
what are some steps? Who do they reach out to if not normal PCPs?
Yeah. The first and most easiest thing that you can be doing is adding omega 3s to your diet, whether it be in food form, as we said, the fatty fishes. I think we call them smack fishes, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, kippers, and sardines. I think those are the sort of classic fatty oil, good fatty oil fishes. So we want to be either eating more of those, or we want to be adding omega-3 supplementation to our diet. So that's the first thing that we want to be doing. The second thing is we want to be looking at how do we support brain function. As we said, eating those foods, removing inflammatory foods. You want to go see someone who understands menopause, either a menopause specialist or a hormonal health specialist, or someone who can guide you to really look at your hormones, at your blood work, see what's going on, see what you need. Vitamin D also you should be adding to your diet. Someone who really understands how menopause shows up and can really guide you in either the lifestyle, nutrition, stress reduction, or HRT. Give yourself grace. We all need to take a breath and know that this is just part of this stage of life, and this too shall pass. And very practically, if you could see my desk, I work with a notebook with all my notes. Do whatever strategy you need. I have also my notepad with my to-do list. Write things down. Acknowledge and accept your brain is not going to hold all this information at the moment. So whatever you need to do, have lists, use post-its. You don't want to create a system that is overwhelming. You want to have a system that is actually functional for you. But really, most of my life is on pen and paper, and it helps. We cannot hold all these things in our head anymore. You want a system that works for you. Always leave things in the same place. For example, car keys or house keys.
Mhm.
Women who like open up the fridge and all of a sudden see their mobile phone or their house keys in the shelf on the fridge. You want to have a system where you are leaving things in the same place. I will very embarrassingly show you, I have a new strap for my phone, which I now wear around me because I was spending so much time. Where's my phone? Where did I put my phone? Asking my husband, asking my kids, call my phone. I don't know where it is. I can't tell you how much time I've saved by the strap I wear around my body.
Mm.
It's ugly. I look like an old lady. But this is my strategy for that very simple thing of I don't now lose my phone. It's now on me. And having these small little things that get us through the day and just relieve that anxiety to help us function the best way we can as this cognitive change is happening at this transitional stage of our lives.
Yes, I love that you shared that because I've been putting my keys in the same spot. I put my sunglasses in the same spot,
Yeah,
and my purse goes in two spots depending on how my day is going. That's it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
my phone, same thing, my water bottle,
yeah,
my tea, whatever coffee cup I'm using for tea, because I gave up coffee this year. That was really challenging too,
yeah,
but I did it. But I have created these habits of where I will put things. I've also become when things need to be put away, where I've really to stay organized. If the mail comes in, I open it and I
yeah,
put it in a folder. On Friday, that's when I'll look at everything. But at least I've already
yeah,
opened it, discarded the mail part of it. Not much comes in mail these days, but
yeah,
I still have the specific places
yeah,
because otherwise I'm not able to find things.
yeah. I think these small strategies, they're not going to fix the whole problem,
Hmm.
but these small strategies just help us to navigate that day to day, which, if it's not functioning, just adds to our stress levels and exacerbates the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you've given us some strategies, what to do, talking about the ADHD concern,
Yeah,
because I have been hearing more about that as well. And this book you've recommended too for
yeah,
the cognitive functions, I'm going to reference that in the show notes. And I'm not advocate. I haven't read the book yet myself, but it seriously seems like a book that we should all be forwarding to our
yeah,
PCPs, our OBs, our coaches who are helping
yeah,
us to
yeah,
where they can all understand. It seems more of a movement of I am worthy that
yeah,
I'd like to, that I'm pushing for. And I
yeah,
believe that helps that
yeah,
movement along when we start to really respect women's health.
yeah. The core of this conversation is that women's health has been shrouded in shame, embarrassment, suffering, struggle. This is just what it means to be a woman, gaslighting, being told we're crazy. It's all in our heads. I want to reclaim that phrase for this episode and say, yes, it is all in my head. I am not crazy. This is what happens during
Mhm.
perimenopause and menopause. But just wait a couple of years because when I come back, I'm going to come back bigger, better, and stronger.
Yes. Thank you, Jacqueline, for sharing wisdom and hope for women in these stages of our lives and compassion to continue bringing this forward with your Menopause Summit. It's important for us, women and men, to understand that we are different in
Yeah,
these biological changes, and it's just not a reproduction issue
yeah.
with
Well,
grace and
thank you.
understanding. So thank you, Jacqueline, for being here.
Thank you, Debbie. This has been great. I hope that we have more conversations
Oh,
left
yeah,
in
we
us.
know there's plenty of more that we can talk through. Thank you.